Can you tell me which page we're going to go?
Oh, yeah, it's the man-eating wife, the little old woman, and the morning star.
3 of them.
And it starts on page 76.
We're live. Hello and welcome to another day in the Milky Way. Hello, everyone. And Susie Q is in the house. I want to... Uh-oh. What happened? And David was there. He really was. But anyhow, Witchy Moon's in the house. Pearl Jones. I want to show a big shout out to Amber Dawn Rising. If you haven't checked out her channel yet, she is having her birthday today. Amber Dawn, happy birthday to you. Big wishes, and I hope it's the best birthday ever. Thank you for all you do for the Soul Tribe. Sure enjoy everything. And there is David Null back again. Just as I was introducing him, he disappeared. But don't worry, don't despair. He will be back. Technical difficulties or whatever it was. But tonight we're going to have a great show as always. And straight from the Milky Way, we will be joining you. And we got tonight I'm going to be talking about language and eloquence. And I did a bunch of study on language this week. And what do you call it? You'd say study of the Americas. And I'm going to pull that up on a map here somewhere sooner or later. But with me and joining me here is David Null, Hawkeye Two Feathers. Thank you for coming, and I hope you don't disappear this time.
Yeah, I closed the wrong window. You know, I was just trying to shrink it down, and it went boing. And I was like, no. Oh, it's live and in color. And I want to thank everyone for coming. And our prayers are with you all. We know that there are a lot of extenuating circumstances in your life, and we pray that you get through it, muddle through it the best way you can. And we thank you for being here for the time that we're here to share and maybe you know, help you to forget some of your daily woes and troubles. Hang out with us. We thank you. We love you. And go ahead, Robert.
Oh yeah, no problem. So anyway, we are going to be talking a little bit about the languages and eloquence. That was the thing. Eloquence. What is eloquence? You know, the oratory eloquence of these speakers. And we hinted on that a little bit last week, but some of these Indian speakers were, I guess they were speakers to their own tribes. That's what a chief did. He would give up there. It's kind of like a little mini president, and he would go and give a speech and tell you, it's bothering me here. But anyway, he would give speeches to his people, and that would get them to follow him into war or, you know, battle. You know, this is why we need you. And, you know, and I am a friend of the white man, or I am not a friend, and this is why we should fight them. And, you know, we need to do these things and blah, blah, blah. You know what I'm saying?
He needed to make his speech convincing to the people that he was speaking to.
Well, yeah, and I think they had a lot to do with that because of, how do I want to say, because they were storytellers, right? I mean, they were telling stories for, you know, thousands of years here. Well, actually, you know, something like that, hundreds of years, passed down from, and we talked about how they would pass down their stories. And of course, some people can tell a story much better than others. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah.
And of course, you know, you get to tell these stories, and as you get older, you can tell them in front of a lot of people, and that, you know, is always a good thing in a way. So anyhow,
yeah, there are some people who can tell a joke and it just isn't funny. It just isn't funny. And then
Yeah.
somebody else can tell the same or similar joke, and people will be bent over laughing and wetting themselves. So
Yeah.
it all depends on the person, their personality, and sometimes it's just you just know when somebody comes out that they're going to be a good storyteller. You can just look at them, and tell
Yes.
by their actions and how their hands move and how they interact with other people. And then there are the people who just walk out there and just stand, you know. And so, but anyway, yeah. So the person and their personality had a lot to do with
Mhm.
their speech. Okay.
Yes.
I might be overriding some of what you're going to talk about, Robert.
No, that's absolutely true, because there was some that,
As a speaker and who won I won the gold medal for extemporaneous speaking for the state of Georgia about 20
really.
years ago. Yeah,
Well, see that
during VICA. And
this
so
is
I have a lot of experience with public speaking, and I placed 7th in the nation at the national convention. So I have a little bit of knowledge about public speaking and large crowds.
well, and see, this is why when you tell a story, I mean, we all just kind of, sit there and go, wow, and you make it interesting. And I just wish could speak half as good as you. That's why you can pronounce those words better than I can.
Not always, but I think we both murder some of them.
Oh yeah, well, and that's the thing. We both,
But we try.
yes, absolutely, we try. But anyway, the point is that we give it hell when we do, and and I try my best to tell the stories, but I don't see them as good as you do. And like that's probably why you won the awards, not me. I always wanted to do that. It always fascinated me when I was in school, in the younger grades. The who was it? The older kids, like the high schoolers or whatever, would come to the younger classes, and they would tell these stories for what do they do? What do they call that when you speak, or they go to they were storytellers or whatever, and it's oratory awards, or what I don't know what they call it.
Right.
What do they call that? Oh, but anyway, they were in that it was a contest thing, like you said, and
Oh
they
yeah,
would go there for
the
speaking.
National Forensic League.
Forensics. That's
Yeah,
the word I'm looking for.
and people think that it has to do with operating on dead people, and it's not. But it had, and I won several awards in high school with the NFL, the National Forensic League.
Yeah.
And so most of my life is, and here I am on YouTube telling stories, and I'm still being an orator in a way, and so. But yeah, the National Forensic League, and we used to go to the different classes, and then the classes would vote on who was the best speaker. So
Yes.
it's like, okay, we like number 1, or we like number 3, or
Yeah, and those were the things. Is I loved that when the kids would come and they would talk and they would tell the story, and you just sit there like, oh, wow. I enjoyed that. I was like, someday I want to do that. And,
well, here you are.
And here I am in some sort of crazy way doing it on my own. But I enjoy it, and believe it or not, the last time I had Trina and Ryan on, and I was talking to them about some stuff, and Trina says, your spirit guides, I see them, and they're saying that you're to tell stories. And I'm like, really? She said, because I said, one of these days I'm gonna be able to see things or view or what, you know what I mean. And she says, no, your job is going to be to tell stories. And I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you're doing that.
Yeah, I guess I am.
I mean, because you're digging into the old history, and you're reading from these books, and telling the story of what used to be and how people looked at things, over 100 years ago.
Yes.
And you've got the proof because you have the books.
Yeah, and
and I thank you for that book that you sent me. I can't believe this thing's like 20 pounds. You lift up this book, and it's a National Geographic book. Here, I got it right here beside me here. I was looking through it. It's not a very, exciting cover, but it's and this is what Robert sent me in the mail. But this thing, it's not very thick, but oh my God, it's heavy. I need a crane to lift it.
Does it got pictures in it? I don't know.
Oh my goodness, at the pictures. Oh yeah. And I mean, and it's not just Native Americans, it's all of the Americas, like from the Incas, and I can't really get close, but yeah, almost every page has got some kind of they've got pictures like this, full color. It's absolutely amazing, but I can't believe it how heavy this book is. It's really dense, and it's a National Geographic on Indians of the Americas, and it's a color illustrated record. And I gotta say, thank you very much, Robert, but I can't believe how heavy this book is.
Well, I thought you would enjoy it. There was a voice in my head that was calling and saying, that book is for you. I don't know why.
And I wish I could share the pictures, It's very well illustrated and full color, it's a really nice book.
I'm glad. And I encourage everybody to go out and, get some books, themselves and look at things themselves. Because that's what it's all about. Do some reading, do some studying. It's not the same if you just listen to other people all the time. You know what I mean?
Yep.
You listen, gives you ideas, and then you go out and you study or look at something that
and
you enjoy.
Experience it yourself.
Yeah, find your own truth. And that's what it's all about, finding your own truth. And that's what we're here to do, all the time too, is we're finding our own truth here. And like it or not, that's what we're doing. Good, bad, or otherwise, right?
And we share them with you in hopes that you will find yours. And like Robert and I have been doing this is 82 episodes now.
Yes.
Well over a year, pushing 2 years actually. And the fact that we have found a common ground, with doing this. I don't think either one of us expected to still be doing this.
Well, and that's the thing. I thought, we'll give it a try, and we like it. It's a fun day to get together, and I really enjoy studying about the Native Americans, and it just fascinates me. And after a while, I realized that it's not just the Native Americans I'm studying our history, our history of the United States
and of
the
Americas. I mean, because we've talked about the folks down in Mexico, and and down in the Honduras area kind of thing, and and like this book that you sent me, it's the Indians of the Americas. I mean, all the way down into the Andes and down into Argentina. I mean, it's not just North America.
Yeah, it's not just North America,
because the
Indians were everywhere, and that's kind of the thing. We're getting quite the full house now. Everybody's coming in. We got Witchy Moon, Michelle Can-Am Free. Michelle was over at Amber's birthday party celebrating. We got Max G, Lucky Stone. Let's see, Susie Q, Witchy Moon, Pearl Jones, who says wishing Amber a happy birthday. And if you go over to Amber's channel, not Amber Dawn Tarot, but Amber Dawn Rising, maybe she's still on, and she's over there. Go wish her a happy birthday on her channel too. And if she's all done, well, leave a comment in her comment section, because she will certainly read it. And if not, maybe she'll be on here later and we will wish her a happy birthday again. Let's see. So back to where we were. Okay, so tonight I'm going to talk about great orators, and we're going to talk a little bit of segue that into language and where the Indian. Remember, we had a show once about where the Indians came from. You know, the time before the Indians. And then we talked about Hiawatha, you know, and how he came down and he separated the tribes and gave them all different languages and, you know, stuff like that, and so forth and so on.
And taught them so many things, like planting and hunting. And Hiawatha didn't just separate them and give them a language, but he taught them things that they did not know.
Now, even with the study I've been doing, and I read or watched this article about a guy. He was doing the language thing, and he said, you know, did the Sioux, you know, we talked about them. We know that the Sioux means the snake people, or you know, something like that. And did they originally live on the plains? And no, I know that for a fact they didn't originally live on the plains, because nobody lived on the plains because there was no horses. So we're going back farther than the horse. And so then we go back even farther than that. Where did these people all come from? And it seems that most of them migrated, and of course we're going to have some good pictures here to share with all of you, because that's what we do. Oops, wrong one. Okay, hang on. Wrong thing. Here we go. Migration. There we go. There's the migration. And of course I got to share screen. And
can I interject something about
go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. A lot of this migration stuff is also hypothesis by scholars and learned men.
Yes.
They're really, in a lot of ways, there's not really much history in proving that. One of them was with the Clovis Point, and they found out later on that maybe there were there were people here in America before this great migration happened. So this migration thing is subject to proof. I just want to put that out there. But go ahead, Robert.
Absolutely. That's pretty much what I was just going to say. And okay, so here we got a picture of migration. This is what the scientist guys say. There's nobody here in North America. And when the land bridge was here, they came across and down into Americas, right? And sure, that kind of might have happened. But
there was probably some migration. I'm not speaking against it, but they say that there was nobody here.
Yes.
And that's how we got, you know, folks got here.
Exactly. Anyway, and they were so as you know, I look at these different maps and things like that, I started seeing different patterns here. So here's a good one. You know, they're saying, oh yeah, they came across, and they went down and all the way down into South America, right? Well, then the guy says, hey, you know, well, you know, there was we're finding places here that have people being here 24,000 years ago, maybe 40,000 years ago. That means that there was people here before this migration, like you were saying. Now, whatever indigenous people lived here, these people were the invaders. So isn't it now this is going to be the ironic thing. So as we talk now, there was people here. The Native Americans that we know of may have come across, sailed across, somehow they got over here, and there may be several different places they came from, like the ones in South America some of them came from Africa, some of them may have come from the Philippines over here and from Asia over across the sea. Other ones that could have came across the Bering Strait and in and down. But the big thing is that they were the invaders for the people that were already here, and then they dominated. But then, as they got settled, well, the Europeans came over, as we know, and in our recent history, and then we dominated them. Now, here's the big question. Who will be the next one to come in and dominate? And, I don't think we have to look far to see what's on the horizon. But I'm just saying isn't it kind of ironic how that works?
Yeah, and notice that there is no migration from the Vikings on that map.
Yeah, see,
and we know that the Vikings came up into Newfoundland and Greenland and all of that up in there long time ago. And
yes.
There are redheaded Indians.
Yes.
Where'd they get that red hair from? Just saying. And
So,
not just one or two, but a predominance. So that genetic marker had to come from someplace.
Exactly. So here's the thing. Now, the one guy was talking about it, and he says that they came down here, made pretty much a beeline, and ended up in Delaware.
Of all places.
Delaware, yeah, which is kind of interesting. So, and I don't have a map of that. And he said this is how he could tell, is because of the languages that the people speak. And he says, you might not be able to follow their footsteps, but you can follow the languages. And of course, of all things, the myths and legends. And as they speak of the other tribes that are around them in their myths and legends. And I thought, well, that's a pretty good way. So he's saying that they did come down. They went down through the mountains, across the plains, and over to Delaware. They made a settlement there. And from there, they all split up, went down, up and down the coast, and then went backwards across the country again. And in that wake that they went across, most of them, believe it or not, just as we are today, most of them lived east of the Mississippi. Go figure, huh? They lived east of the Mississippi, leaving the whole plains states up to the mountains pretty much empty, because nobody lived on the plains, because there was what? There was nothing to heat your house with. There was no wood. There wasn't much in the plains.
There's no trees.
No trees. Yeah. What are you going to build your hut out of? Your dirt, and then what? The buffalo, they roam back and forth. What are you going to hunt out there? There's
and
no
I mean, you don't even have poles to hold up your teepee. I mean,
yes,
it's a long way to go get wood to just for your teepee. So,
yeah, exactly. So they basically started out here on the coast. They went all the way across, finding nothing, got over to here, and then they split up. And as you can see by the languages, I think wish I had a better map, but it is what it is. And then they split up. And as you can see, how these people up here in green spoke one language. And then as they go, the Sioux basically were over here and migrated little by being pushed from tribe to tribe all the way out across the plains. Little by little, they all got pushed west as they needed territory. And when the horses came, they, conquered the plains in here. And as you can see, the Crow, the Cheyenne, the Arapaho, the Sioux, and the Pawnee, and the Comanche were plains Indians. And as they came across, some of these people dropped out of that crossing party, making and settling some of the West Coast, because obviously there's wood over here and places to live. And the people that live down in this area also speak the same language as the people up in this area in say Alaska. So the Apache and the Navajo and the Pueblo speak a similar dialect as the Inuit and the Tlingit up there. So how's that possible, right? Kind of weird, right? So that's how the guy was saying. And then of course, they didn't have a system of writing, but they did have pictographs, picture stories, which, here's one of the picture stories. So that's my presentation for that.
All right, go back.
Oh, I can go back.
Yeah, please.
Yes. What do you want?
The next one back.
This one?
Yeah, go back one more just because.
Okay.
All right, now they came in from up in the Washington State area in Canada.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Now, how many of them?
The guy didn't say. The only way he was.
Okay, let me point out something. So
yes,
if it was let's say it was a hunting party.
Yeah.
And they were a hunting party because it wasn't just that they were hunting for game. Of course, they had to feed themselves, but they were also hunting for more open areas, more hunting grounds. So they were hunting in general of resources and so forth.
Yes.
So how many of them were there in that hunting party that crossed over the land bridge? How now the way they present this is that there was a whole slew of them that came.
Yes.
When actuality, it was probably a hunting party.
It could have been. Well, and it could have been.
Well, but they would not have started off with friends and children and mothers and old people to something that they didn't know was there. So they had no reason to cross the land bridge until the hunters came back and said, "Woo, y'all come with us."
Well, yeah. Well, what drives people to migrate?
And how many, because the way they are putting it, that there were thousands of people that came across the land bridge.
Okay.
And so there were thousands of people that started up in Washington and trekked 4,000 miles across the United States and the wilderness and all that to go to Delaware.
Well, that's the whole thing. And how
and
many
now,
actually...
here's it. Hang on. I'm not arguing with you, Robert. I'm arguing with these people who think that, so they didn't leave little traces along the way before they got to Delaware.
They did.
Groups of folks said, "Hey, we're going to stay here," and maybe they started out in the Great Basin, and then they were, and then another little group of folks, but they're insinuating that there were thousands of people who migrated across this land bridge. And if I were somebody who, I'd go, wait a minute, I don't know. How many miles is that across ice and snow?
Well,
just saying, all them thousands of years ago. So they're supposing a lot, because there's more evidence. My point is that there were people already here.
Yes. Well, and I'm not disagreeing with the people already here. I'm saying is that when you have a group of people that come over this way, for instance, I'm just saying, and they are, how do I want to say it? Okay. So the group of people that are coming are on higher up on the totem pole than the people that are already here. For instance, right? They're going to be a conquered people, just like when the English came here and they were the top of the totem pole. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, but we're only supposing that. And my point is that how many people actually came across that land bridge? Because what you're supposing is that there were thousands who came with weapons to conquer.
Well, it doesn't. Well, I beg to differ. It doesn't take thousands with weapons. It only takes hundreds with better weapons than the other weapons that they have. You see what I'm saying? If just like when the English got here, they had swords and the Indians didn't. They had this armor. The Spanish had the armor, and the Indians shot their arrows, and they couldn't penetrate the armor. Just something simple like that made them invincible.
Right.
I mean, there's thousands.
There's no real proof that there was armor from the Chinese.
No. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is you only need one little bitty piece of the puzzle that's a little bit better than the other guy to overcome him with the small numbers over great numbers.
Okay, well, let me throw this out there.
Yeah.
And there's a big discussion among those folks who do flint knapping and arrowheads.
Yeah.
And the Clovis point was one of those things they said, oh, it came over across the land bridge.
Yeah.
And what they have found out over these last, I'll say 10 years, is that the Clovis point was already here in the United States. So, and you have to be taught how to do this particular type of arrowhead. And it was a better type of arrowhead. That's why it became so popular. But the thing is that for a long time, all these scientists and historians, supposedly, because the Clovis point was so similar to what was in China and Russia and over there in the steppes, they said, oh, the Clovis point had to come from there. And then they got further west or east, and they were like, wait a minute, some of this stuff here, we're finding Clovis points that are, 3,000 years old, 4,000 years old, before the land bridge.
Yeah.
So the thing is that the Clovis point was supposed to be that armor, if you will. And that because they had the Clovis point, it made them more efficient, when actually that's not true.
Well, I mean, and who knows at that point what, they could have had the Clovis point. Maybe they had a better bow, and, we don't have any things, or maybe they had something better. Whatever it was better, or maybe they brought a disease, just as the English did. And whoever was here, or maybe the people that were here got integrated with them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I want to say that the way they conquered the people was by influence and not by war.
Well, a little bit of both, I would say. You never have 100% of one or the other. But I'm just saying, is this guy was talking about the languages, and the language as they came across, you could tell where the people dropped off and how the languages broke up, and then how they went backwards across the land. You know what I'm saying? So the language, the people started out over here have the same language on the West Coast as they, but then once they got to the East Coast, they must have been separated for so long. But then the people on the East Coast have a dialect that's close to the people on the east side of the Mississippi River here. And then and the same tales talking about a certain group of people that ended up being Plains people.
Right. I would agree with the language, but because that's more proof. But all of this other supposition is what I am like. Hang on, y'all are just pipe dreaming that some of this.
Well, well, yeah, but I can understand that they came this way. They also, this other guy says, well, yeah, but some of them came down through here, not all of them. There's other people that may have come across the water here and across the water the other way from the Europe or from Africa or other places. They may have come across the Atlantic. They may have come down like the Vikings did also.
Well, how did the people in Europe get there?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. We don't know.
Okay, well, so they have to think that there's no way that the Americas were already populated. They had to make up a white Christian viewpoint. The Americas had to have migrated, because there's no way that there were indigenous people that God would have put on this planet before the white man came. So everything is supposed, because the natives couldn't have got there by themselves. Now, how come the divine intervention didn't place the Incas and Machu Picchu down there? They might have been the first inhabitants of the planet. But the white man sees it as, oh, wait a minute, everybody is descendant from us, and they had to have migrated from us. They couldn't have been placed here by divine intervention. No, that's not possible. They had to have come from us.
Well, even in the stories that we read, there was people already here. Remember?
Right.
The story about the Inca. And the two, I forget what the guy's name was, Khan or Can or whatever.
Is that the one where him and his wife were in the middle of the lake?
Yes. And they just showed up from the sky. And what did he say? There was barbarians everywhere. And he talked to them, and he, schooled them and taught them language, reading, writing, and taught them science and government and all of these things. And he came here to get back his empire, or whatever it was, his lands, or his empire that apparently was once his before. So where did these people come from?
Right.
And that just means that these people were already here, and somebody was here. And it just tells you that, say there was already people here and there was a cataclysm of some kind. Most people, even now, if there was a cataclysm, lots of people would die, and the people who didn't die would survive, and you would go backwards in your abilities to survive. You would start foraging. You would start building the easiest way to build. You wouldn't have guns because there's no bullets, there's no store. Sure, you'd have that stuff for a while, and then it would go away. And then little by little, you'd have to learn how to trap. You'd have to learn how to make rope out of weeds and grasses and things like that. You know what I mean? And the people that knew those things would survive, and they would pass that down. You wouldn't care about reading and writing anymore, would you? You would care about
or leaving any kind of long-term history. And I want to bring this up. A lot of folks forget about Pangea.
Yeah.
And what it was Pangea? Pangea was Turtle Island, the original one piece of land that broke up. Okay. Yeah. And with Pangea, you can tell if you put Africa over towards, the United States, it fits remarkably well. So my point about that, Pangea, what if there were already indigenous peoples on the planet? And when Pangea came and separated with the Atlantic, that left indigenous peoples on both sides.
Well, yeah, of course.
And they discount it. You see, they don't bring up Pangea when they're talking about migration. No, there was nobody on either continent. Nobody existed until the white man migrated there. But
Yeah.
here's the thing, the white man migrated. So then how did he become the red man? Where did the DNA show up for the red man?
Yeah.
Okay. Who did they copulate with in order to get the white out of them to become the red man? So I'm saying that the migration thing is done by white men that have to keep this, they are all descendants of us, they have to be. But if Pangea was the original, then I'm just saying it just makes sense that there were, indigenous people on either side of that split, and that would have been one hell of a cataclysm and would have created a flood if Pangea split, goodness gracious.
Well, no, I totally agree with you. Something happened, and it's just like, well, it's like this. I mean, we can tell that something happened, especially in North and South America, because of the fact that, the horse. That's one I know for instance, for certain, is the horse. The horse was only found in Europe, and it was found in Africa and all this other place, but it wasn't found in Australia. There's no horses in Australia. There was no horses in South America and North America. And why is this? Because, but at one point there was horses, but something happened and all the horses died off. Why? And how was that? How could that be? But like I said, but yet we find people in North and South America. We find people in Australia. We find people in all these other ones. So something happened, and some little nook of horses survived in Europe and then spread out through Europe and Asia, but they couldn't make it back to North America or South America. Just like elephants are not, even though there are these places here, why didn't the elephants survive in South America? Good place for them to survive, right?
Or giraffes.
Or giraffes and all of that.
I mean, there are monkeys, all the way from, Mexico and south and into South America, but there aren't any monkeys up here, except our politicians, but.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying is when you really start boiling it down to it, oops. Yeah, I get rid of that. Anyway, when you really start boiling it down, it tells you that there was something big happened. And when that big thing happened, very few things survived. And we can go back into the Native American myths and legends, and it says there, how many of them did we read where they were hiding in the ground and they came up out of the ground, or they, that one, remember the one we read where, well, the great spirit told him to go north, and then it told him to go south, and then it told him to go north again because there was a flood one way, and then there was a flood another way, and then there was this and that, and so he had him going back and forth and back and forth. Remember that?
Yep.
So the thing is that over all these years, with the cataclysms that happen, the earthquakes, the floods, the volcanoes, things like that, people die off, people move, sometimes they lose everything, and a great flood would cover everything, destroy things. You'd never ever find any remnants. It would kill all the animals in that area. And where's all the big fauna that was around? The only thing that really survived was the elk and the deer and the buffalo that were any good size at all.
Yep. Well, my point about the migration thing is they want the folks who are stating these things, they're stating that nothing existed here, north or south, and I'm just saying they won't tell you about the proof that they found, and one of them is the Clovis point. How did folks in South Carolina know how to make the Clovis point before the folks got there from Russia? And they're like, wait a minute, how did you guys learn how to do this?
Yes,
and it's like, well, we've been doing this for 1,000 years, and then whoops, but they don't talk about that because then that's contrary to their migration thing. And so I just want to say, yes, people migrated from over there, but how come if they migrated from China, how come we don't have woks and stir fry?
Yeah, well,
How come we don't have slanted eyes? How come we don't have yellower skin? How come we don't have more traits of the Chinese people? Just saying.
Well,
Just saying. So the migration thing, I agree, happened, but not in the way they want to claim it.
Well, and
there's a lot more to it.
Yes. Well, they would have integrated with the people that were already here.
Right.
And those people, we don't know what color they were. We
Nope.
don't know if they, maybe they didn't have slanted eyes. And then the mixture between the two ended up with what we have for a Native American today. And I can't say, like I said, all I know is this guy was talking about, well, you can't follow their foot tracks, but you can follow their language. And the language says is that they came down and they went to the East Coast, and literally then after that broke up, and then they went back towards the West. And I'm thinking about this whole thing, and I'm thinking, people are people, just like we are right now. Where was some of the first places the English settled? Around Delaware. How ironic. And then what was the next part? We spread from east to west. How ironic is that? Most people live, even to this day, between the Mississippi River and the East Coast, correct?
Yep.
And that's where the mass populations of Indians were. And little by little, they spread west. Even the Indians that lived on the West Coast really didn't go too far east until they got the horse. Like the Comanche, they were technically up in Wyoming in a small group. And once the horse came, they became Plains Indians and really spread out. So anyhow, like I said, it's you follow the language and the language barriers, and it just says that most of these people were all related at one point or another. And there's, many dialects, but they were all grouped in a small area. So the question is how did they all get to that one area and then work their way back? Right? And if there was people here, they would have conquered and integrated just as the white man did when they came. That's my whole point, is whatever technology or whatever they brought, they could have been Neanderthals, for God's sakes, that were here, and we wouldn't have known it. It was just the fact that the people that were here, yeah, they had the Clovis head, they had arrows and things. Well, what did these guys have that the other guys didn't, that they integrated with them or conquered them?
See, my biggest issue with that is conquer.
Well,
so they conquered them with their language, and they conquered them with their suave ability to be able to communicate with them. But I don't believe that they came in bloodthirsty, because there were too many people already here that would have massacred them. That's my point. They would have had to bring thousands and thousands of people across the land bridge with oxen and things to feed them and everything. And it would have been a very arduous task for any large number of people to have made that kind of, quote, migration. And then to get on the other side and conquer whoever was there. So my issue is with the conquer part. All right. I do believe they migrated, but the conquer part is that they integrated with the tribes. They conquered them by their influence, not necessarily by, I don't think it was by bloodshed. That's my point. I think they conquered them with words and their knowledge, and they taught them a language, and maybe the Delaware folks didn't have any kind of language. And so they brought a language to them so they could speak, so, but I just don't agree with the conquering part. That's the part I don't agree with, because that implies massive armies with massive all kinds of stuff, and there's no real proof of that.
No, there isn't. And well, conquering could be all kinds of things. See, that's that. I think that's where you and me are trying to argue, and I'm saying that conquering is my dominance over you. Okay, even if it's intellectual, I'm dominating you because I'm smarter, or or maybe I have a language and you don't. Maybe I have a weapon that can get more food, so my family survives better, and you want to integrate because you want to survive like I do. Just like when the white man came, the white man was just a little bit better off than the Indian, but all the Indian wanted, wow, I can get a pot and pan, maybe I could get a metal tomahawk or an axe. How great would that be, instead of hewing out a canoe with a stone and some fire? You know what I mean? It speed up the process. My life is going to be so much better. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but the folks from Europe were different than the folks from China and from Russia up there in the steppes. And I think the original people who put conquering down, that these folks came in and conquered, they should have used another word. So we're defending a word that somebody used. Of course they came and conquered. They were dominant because they migrated. And they weren't given any credence to anybody already being here, because that would just upset the whole thing. So they had to use the word conquer in order for white people and everybody to go, oh yeah, they went in and conquered everybody, when maybe they should have said, they went in like Hiawatha and he influenced them. For me, that makes a much better story and is much more believable.
Yes.
I mean, it really is. I mean, to use the word conquer, like, oh, well, we meant intellectually. Yeah, but that's not what when you say conquer, you're talking about going in and literally rolling over people and burning villages and conquering them, well, that's not really what you mean.
Well, then again, we don't know how many people were actually here either. There might have been, thousands, and the people
there were a bunch of folks here.
Oh yeah. I mean, in numbers,
they were spread out. But there was a bunch of folks already here because of where they have found the Clovis point. I'll go back to that, and that goes back a bunch of years. So, but did they come across the land thing? I would be more, that they came by boat instead of trying to come across the land bridge, because if that one picture that you showed, there's thousands of miles of ice and snow. How are you going to survive that? I mean, come on. I don't care if you're Eskimo or not. What are you going to eat? How are you going to hunt? What are you going to do? And are you prepared for that? And what are you thinking that something else is at the other end of all that ice and snow? But if you're in a boat, you can sail and go into coves. And so I would much more believe that they came by boat than they did by the landmass.
I do agree with that too. And these guys were talking about that land bridge and that too, that the guy was saying, well, for all those thousands of people coming over, that area would have been really rocky. It would have been really cold. But then again, we're not really sure, because most of that land bridge now is underwater. So we can't really tell. Maybe it was a tropical jungle, or maybe it was a frozen wasteland. I don't know either. What I'm saying is people in general, and we're going to go with what happens today. Why are people migrating? First off, people migrate because they want jobs, because they want food and a house. They want things to get better. Then they migrate and how do they migrate? Just like you said, they walk, they boat. You know, how many of those ones from Cuba have you seen where they get on a boat, you know, 50 or 100 or 1,000 of them, and they're about ready to capsize that boat, and yet they still sail, you know. So I'm just saying is that yeah, they could have came by boat. I believe that could be so. And if they did come from Asia, here's the thing. If you're coming from Asia, after 1,000 years, you're going to lose a lot of your native heritage, because that's just not the area you live in anymore. You know what I'm saying? That's just not who you are. That you're moving from one area to the next, and then you got to think about the genetics. How did the genetics change? Why didn't the Indians have beards and mustaches? You know, whereas Chinese people kind of do, don't they?
Yeah.
So did the people that were originally here, did they not have beards and mustaches? And when these people integrated with those people, they took on those traits. See, that's another thought, just like you're saying. So was their genes the dominant genes when they integrated with those people, and that's why they didn't have beards and mustaches?
See, there was a much greater, you know, with the red hair and the Delawares and the Iroquois and some of them folks on the East Coast, you know, influence from the Vikings and
yes,
showed up. But
yeah,
there's no, from in my opinion now, the Tlingit, there is some relative like look-alike kind of thing, but still they don't have beards. You know, but some of them have a mustache, but which would, you know, suggest that there's that mix between the Native Americans and you know, the folks that came over. But
yeah.
the further you go down the coast, it's like, nope, you know, things change. And then when you go further west, nope, it's the red man, and
Yeah.
he's the predominant. So my point to that is the genetic wise, it didn't, there's no, you can't see it in the population. And
Well,
you should be able to see it in the, if that migration was as great as they claim it to be, there should be more, you know, slant eyes, there should be more, you know,
well, it depends. Okay,
sweet
so
and sour pork.
I'm gonna throw a wrench in this too. Okay, if I got 100 really smart guys, right? 100 real smart professor type guys, and I got a population of 100,000 people, and they're kind of on the dumb side, right? They don't know how to read and write and blah blah blah. But I got 100 smart, really smart guys that know everything, and I integrate them with the 100,000 or the 10,000 or whatever people. The people that pop out of that are probably going to be smarter, because these 100 smart guys are going to teach them language, science. They're going to teach them, government. They're going to teach them, drawing and artistics. They're going to teach them all of these amazing things they didn't know anything about. And they're going to jump up the evolution ladder really fast, even though that 100 guys is really going to pass on a lot of their genetics. You see what I'm saying? Even though those 100 guys are probably going to make it look like they conquered those 10,000 or the 100,000 guys, because they influenced them so much. You see where I'm going with this?
Yeah, and I don't disagree. I just disagree with the conquered word.
Well, but in some way, shape, or form, they kind of are conquering, because
I know, but I still think I want to use the word influence.
Influence.
Yeah, I just think that they should take the word conquer out and change it with the word influence. That's all.
Yes. Well, yeah. I mean, unfortunately, you're right, but they influenced to the point where that society became the other society, and I think that's kind of what happened. because if you mix a group of people who don't have much with a group of people who know a lot more, you're going to end up with a mediocre group that knows quite a bit. And
But
then
see,
they're going to
that's
take
my
on those
point
traits.
about the migration thing. When they found the Clovis point was already here,
Yeah.
that meant that the native population was a hell of a lot smarter than anybody had ever given them credit.
Well, yeah.
See, so in order for the natives to have the Clovis point, they had to have achieved a certain amount of smarts. They weren't a bunch of dumb Indians. Well, these people migrated and they brought all these wonderful things. Yeah, but the natives said, well, we already got the Clovis point. We already got this. What else are you going to teach us? You know? So the writers of these stories have to appear grandiose because the local population can't be as smart as the invaders and the conquerors. And,
Yeah.
you know, but wait a minute, there's 10,000 people that have lived in this area, and you bring in 100 guys. Well, what's to make them 100 guys smarter than them 10,000 people? Them 10,000 people are still alive. They have had to survive. They have had to have had some kind of housing or something. They had to have had some way to feed themselves, thus the Clovis point. So the native people were a hell of a lot smarter, had a lot of stuff they didn't build with stone, but they had teepees and lodges and things like we've talked about. Those are very, very old. So, but the white man has always got to make sure that he's superior. Well, we conquered them stupid Indians. Well, we introduced them to the Clovis point. When the Indians were going, no, sorry guys, we already got it. Well, we've had this for 1,000 years. So where is this, superiority? What did they teach them that was so superior to what the locals already had? Language. I would agree with that. Language. They brought them a method because, as we have learned, most Native Americans talk very little. They really do. They don't chat a lot. Yeah. And their stories are usually a lot more abrupt than us white people tell them. But the idea, though, that the people who write these stories have to make it grandiose for the white people. They absolutely do. It is so whitewashed. So I've just, I have stated my opinion, but there's just so much more to this story than these white men who have written these hypotheticals as to how the migration happened. I submit that, that the native peoples goes all the way back to Pangea, that there were native folks on either side of the Atlantic for the Great Split. And these, peoples are millions of years old.
Oh, I don't disagree. Well, it's kind of like they have this big argument about the Neanderthals. And, where did the Neanderthals go?
Right.
Why are they all gone? Why don't we have Neanderthals? Well, they literally got conquered by the Cro-Magnon man, or they integrated, one or the other. And I imagine, just like the Indians were doing, as we know for certain, they would war against certain tribes. And in some cases, they literally wiped that tribe off the face of the map at some point in time. If that tribe had a catastrophe and another tribe came in and overwhelmed them, that tribe could get wiped off the map.
And you know what they're finding out? They're sort of admitting to? That the caveman wasn't as freaking stupid as they claim.
Yes.
They were finding like million-year-old tools. Well, but the caveman, he couldn't have a stone axe, or he couldn't do this. But how did all them people survive? If they were that stupid, how could and that would be my point to Pangea.
Oh, yeah. I just
the Cro-Magnon man, they were on either side of the split of the ocean kind of thing. And they developed and lost their hair and maybe integrated with the Neanderthal.
Well, Well,
you know.
and that's the thing. I just read an article about they found a flute from I don't know which it was, but the flute is like 15,000 years old or something like that. And they're like, oh my God, this must have been the first flute, 15,000 years ago. And I'm thinking, if that guy had enough sense and figured out how to take a hollow bird leg or something and poke some holes in it and make a flute
And tune it.
and tune it, he copied it from somebody else. And that
And
means
tune it. You can make a flute, but it ain't going to make, it's going to make noise. But if you have made a real flute, you fine tune it, to get the A, to get all the notes. So where did they learn how to make it? That'd be one. How did they tune it? Number two, where did they learn how to tune it? And how did they know that it was out of tune? So they had to know about music composition and so go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, the idea is it's just like any of these other things. How much time did it take to develop that? And just because you found that one, does that mean that was the first one? Obviously not. That was just one of the millions of copies that were probably out there at the time. Because you know how a fad spreads, nothing ever changes. It's like this. Okay, they found Globekki Tepe, right? And they got these massive stones and they're digging them up and they're like, oh man, and here's the carvings on the stones. And, this place is, 14,000 years old and blah, 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 blah. Right? Well, man was around and collectively getting together and putting these stones up 14,000 years. That's when society started. And then I think, well, you people are idiots if you think I'm going to believe that, because obviously it took 1,000 years before that for man to get together to realize that he could cut the stone, and then he had to get people together to move the stone, and then actually speak a language all together so that they could design the stones and work together, and then you had to have people that were feeding the people making the stones. So they weren't out hunting gathering, because you wouldn't be sitting there saying, well, I'm going to make this stone, and then 20 years later, I'm going to come back and I'm going to chip a little more off while we're hunting for some buffalo out there in the wilderness, right? No, you have to have a collective society put together to have time for some guys to sit down and carve those stones and design this and angle it with the sun and the moon and figure out all these angles year after year after year, so you could put all this stuff together. Am I right?
Yeah, and not only that, but me being a machinist and a metal worker, they always forget about the tools involved. There was a whole group of folks that kept the stonemasons with tools.
Yeah, so
there was a whole machinist group. They had to collect the rocks, so they had to melt them down. Then they had to do these different things and then get them to the stone cutters. The stone cutters couldn't cut stone without tools.
Well, and that's another thing. You had to invent the tools. You
right.
Had to say,
which came first, the tool or the cutter? The tool.
Well, exactly. You didn't want to build a stone monument, and the guy in charge says, I think we should build a stone monument. Well, you go out there and invent some tools to cut these stones, and next week we'll start building. It's going to take him a long time to figure out, what do I do to get the stone, and then how are we going to move the stones? You over there, you go and invent something to move the stones with, and you go invent something to cut the stones with, and then I'll get some other guys together, and we'll become architects and teach ourselves everything.
Yeah, and Pythagoras was the first one to come up with the triangle kind of thing. And back in the day, they had to figure out how to use leverage, how to use a log with a log underneath and an anvil and pivot and that they want to say that no, it was really developed during the time of the Greeks.
No.
There's a monkey can figure out how to use a stick for leverage,
Yeah.
Even birds use sticks to get the ants out of a hollow log kind of thing. I mean, so, but this idea that, see, the white man has to make sure that everything came from the white man. All of the stories that had to come from here, all of the stories of this, well, we, the Greeks, the this ones, the Romans, everything had to come from them. Nah.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. People are people and people aren't stupid. And when there's no invention, somebody will go out and invent something. And even, people nowadays, if I don't have something, I think, how can I make this? But in order to make that, I got to have other tools to make that. And, so it's a chain process. Otherwise, I'd have to invent the tool to make the thing so I could build it,
Right.
and like I said, it's like building the pyramids. You didn't just build the pyramids or Göbekli Tepe. It took, hundreds and hundreds of years of society and development and putting together so they could actually think, why do we even need to build this?
The infrastructure to build it.
Yeah.
The people to support it. That just the massive undertaking that it would take just to feed those people.
Well, and that's the thing is not they go back like we were talking about the people migrating out of the Asia. But then again, when you start looking at the Indians and the genetics, some of those Indians we read about, they were quite large. They was there giants here, and they are some of the descendants or interbreeding of those giant people.
I know.
Makes you wonder.
I've met some of Lakota, and one I'm thinking about is Bear, and this guy is 6'7".
Yeah.
And he is a looming, he will scare you to death. He's so big. Yeah. And he literally can wear a bear skin. That's why they call him Bear. Yeah. And it full length, and he fills this thing out. And the last time I saw him was in Tullahoma, Tennessee, and he was teaching people how to throw an axe and being very successful at it too, I might add. But so there were some of the Lakotas were close to 7 feet tall. I mean, to this day, there are what would be considered giants of men at 6.5, 7 foot tall. So, the genetics is still in there.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying.
Not to say that they were giants, but if you were somebody that was only 5'5", a 6'7" guy would look like a giant to you.
Well, yeah, but that's what I'm saying. They had to get the genetics to get to that height. Whereas when they couldn't have got them from the Chinese or nope. the Europeans, because most of those were pretty short, small people.
Right.
The Europeans, the Spaniards that came over, they were short and small, and the Indians that were here were big and tall. So how did they get big and tall? Where'd the genetics come from? Right.
I agree. That's my thing is that, there were native folks already here,
Yeah.
And this idea of migration, we should have a bunch of really short people up in the Northwest. I mean,
Yeah. Okay. Well, enough of my rambling. Where are we going tonight?
Well, the idea, of the migration, I think that's a good topic. And I think that, that there is a migration going on now with people coming out of the South and across our borders. Mm-hmm. And some would say infiltrating the United States. That would be a pretty good term. Did you lose me?
Yeah, I don't have your picture.
Did I hit something?
You must have hit something.
I must have turned something on.
Well, this is the whole thing about the migration I was trying to talk about. Why I was trying to ask you about, why do people migrate? They migrate for certain things: food, shelter, water. Why are the people coming from the south to the north? Because they know they can get food, water, shelter, money, have a better life. And they're going to come by not just one or two, they're going to come by boat. They're going to come by, and which they are, they're coming by boat. They're coming, walking across, sure, many of them are losing their lives and things like that. but they are coming, and it's usually mass migration. So what would, and this is why I try to compare, and you're saying, well, maybe a couple hundred, but then again, in the migrations I've seen so far in our day and age, it's not been 5 or 10, it's thousands, hundreds of thousands.
Yeah, it's 50,000. Yeah, at a time. The amount of folks that are coming across the border per day right now is just astronomical.
Yeah.
And my biggest thing is come legal, sign up somehow, don't crawl under the fence, put your name down, get a temporary card, and if you want to come to America, then make yourself part of America. That's all. I mean, the people that came over and went, through Ellis Island, they all signed when they came in. They didn't say go home. They said, here, sign up. Here, where's your name and where are you from? And, so right now, I think that of all the things that I'm ticked off about is these folks need to get in line. But if they're gonna go in under the fence, then sign them up and give them a card. Take a digital picture of them, and so that you can get face recognition, and so that you got a little bit of history, and then let them in. Okay,
something.
Okay, yeah. But to just let them crawl under the fence is, nah, I don't agree with that part.
So I like we were talking about, it's a hard way, and would they come thousands of miles? Well, they're coming thousands of miles now. So here's my theory, though. It could possibly be, I'm not going to throw it out. What if there was no food on the other side? What if on the Asia side they were running out of food, and there was more people than there was food, and they said, hey, a group of us went this way, and they said there's plenty of food. There's elk and deer and blah, blah, blah. And of course, the migration's going to happen pretty fast because the word's going to pass. And thousands of people are going to say, we could stay here and starve, or we can go on a 1,000-mile journey and eat like kings.
Well, see, that goes back to what I was talking about, hunting parties.
Yes.
They sent out the hunting parties, and because of food or whatever, and and they came back and said, okay, there's a reason to go across this, the land bridge now. Come on, y'all.
Well, and we don't know what here's the thing, what we don't know, and they don't ever tell us, what was going on the other side of the land bridge that these people wanted to come in the first place. Because people who are content, and I will argue this point, if you're content, you have plenty of food, plenty of water and shelter, you don't want to leave. You don't move.
Except for the adventurer.
Yeah.
There is the adventurer. I mean, it's still in me after 70 years. I can't wait to get better, to go adventure somewhere. But the adventurer / hunter could come back and give tales and tell stories of what's on the other side. And that would give impetus for people to go, well, is it different from here? Oh, yeah, we saw these great plains and there were buffalo everywhere. Oh, my God. And they would go, wow, I'm content here, but wow, that, the adventure of it, go west, young man,
I agree with you.
But that might not necessarily spark a grand migration, but it would, it would pique the interest of people who might otherwise be sedentary.
Well, and that's the thing. From our studies here, even from my studies, when the trappers first came out, those were the adventurers. They came out and they intermingled with the Native Americans that were here, but they didn't change anything. Yeah, they taught them a few languages, or they did a little bit of this and a little bit of that and showed them some new things. But really, their way of life didn't change because there wasn't enough of them to change. You're right, though, that those trapper people came back and they said, go west, look at good stuff over there. There's money and there's land for you. And they told all the other people, and that's that's when the mass migration came, because the people were migrating because they didn't have anything on the east side. Or when the Civil War went and they lost all their stuff, and they said, and which is when all the buffalo got killed. We just talked about that the other week. How, the buffalo were holding their own, the Indians were fine, the Civil War happened, and after the Civil War, people were like, I lost everything, I'm going west. Oh, I can become a buffalo hunter, and I can make 15 equivalent to our day money now. I can make $1,500 a day shooting buffalo. Wouldn't you go shoot buffalo for $1,500 a day?
Well, first they worked on the railroads to get the people to the buffalo. And so all those people, they started the railroads west and so forth. But then it took them to the buffalo, so they could kill them all.
Yeah.
So yes,
but the people that were going out there were people who had
dissatisfied.
They didn't have anything. They burnt my farm down. They killed all my crops, my cattle. I got nothing. But I hear there's gold in California or in Wyoming or in Montana, or hey, I can shoot buffalo
Arizona.
on the plains. Yeah, I could go west and make a fortune, and I'm going. I got nothing to lose, and they did. And of course, because there's fame and fortune to be had, even though they don't know anything. That's okay. So anyway, let's get a story in. We're going to be talking about this whole thing. Well, where am I going tonight?
Hopefully I won't close the wrong page. I've shut my camera off, and let's see, what page is this? The name of the story is The Man-Eating Wife, The Little Old Woman, and the Morning Star. Ooh. And it's on page 76. And we're still on with Seneca Indian Myths by J. Curtin, 1923. So this year is exactly 100 years that this story was
and there we go. Look
not this story, but when this book was written.
Just like magic, there we go.
Morning Star, God be with us. Man-eater is on us. And the name of the story is The Man-Eating Wife, The Little Old Woman, and the Morning Star, told by John Armstrong. All right, let me get set up here with my little cursor thingy. A man and a woman lived by themselves in a clearing in the forest. The man hunted. The woman raised beans and corn. One day, when the woman sat in front of the fire baking an ash cake, a large spark flew out and burned her. She rubbed the spot with her finger, and when it began to blister, she wet her finger in her mouth and rubbed the blister. In this way, she got the taste of her own flesh, and she liked it. She took a flint knife, cut out the burnt piece of flesh, and ate it. The taste was so agreeable that she took a coal of fire, burned another place on her arm, cut out the flesh, and ate it. The desire grew upon her, and she kept burning and eating herself till she had eaten all the flesh she could reach on her arms and legs. The man had a dog that was wise and was his friend. The dog sat by the fire and watched the woman. When she was about half through eating herself, she said to him, "You had better go and tell your friend to run away and to take you with him. If he doesn't hurry off, I shall eat you both." The dog ran as fast as he could, and when he came to where the man was hunting, he told what had happened, that is, wife had become ennuyous, man-eater, and was going to eat herself and then eat them. The man and the dog started off. The dog's legs were short and he couldn't run fast. So the man put him in a hollow tree and commanded him to become punk. The dog was willing, for he wanted his master to save himself. The man went on as fast as he could till he came to a river with high banks. By the river sat an old man. "Grandfather," said the man, "I am in great trouble. Put me across the river. Save me. My wife is following me. She wants to kill and eat me." "I know she was following you," said the old man, "but she is still a long way off. I will put you across, but first you must bring me a basket full of fish from my fish pond." The man went for the fish. The pond was enclosed. On the bank was a basket with a handle. The man caught a large number of fish, filled the basket, and carried it to the old man, who cooked the fish and then said, "Sit down and eat with me." They ate together. Then the old man said, "Now you must bring me a basket full of ground nuts." The man ran to the old man's garden, dug up the ground nuts as quickly as possible, and carried them to him. After he had cooked and eaten the nuts, he said, "Now I will put you across the river." He lay down at the edge of the water and, leaning on his elbows, stretched his neck to the opposite bank and called out, "Walk across on my neck, but be careful. I am not as strong as I used to be." The man walked over carefully. Then the old man bade him goodbye, saying, "Far off in the west, you will come to a large bark house. That house belongs to your 3 aunts. They will help you." After the woman sent the dog away, she took a stick and, pushing the marrow out of her bones, ate it. She filled her bones with pebbles, and the pebbles rattled as she moved. Every little while she stopped eating and danced, and when she heard the stones rattle in her legs and arms, she said, "Oh, that sounds good." The woman devoured everything in the cabin: meat, bread, skins, everything that could be eaten. And when there was nothing left, she started off to find her husband. She came upon his tracks and followed them. Once in a while, she stopped and danced and listened with delight to the rattle of the pebbles in her bones. Then she went on again. When she came to the bank of the river and saw the old ferryman, she screamed to him, "Old man, come and put me across the river. I am following my husband. Be quick." The fisherman turned slowly toward her and said, "I can't put you across. There is no crossing for a woman who is chasing her husband to catch and eat him." But the woman urged and begged, till at last the old man said, "I'll put you across, but first you must bring me a basket full of fish and dig me a basket full of ground nuts." She brought the fish and the nuts, but when they were cooked, she wouldn't eat with the old man. She would eat nothing now but human flesh. After the old man had eaten the fish and the nuts, he stretched his neck across the river, but in the form of a horse's neck, very narrow and arching. The woman was angry and asked, "How do you think I am going to walk on that?" "You can do as you like," answered he. "I am old. I can't make my neck flat. It would break. As it is, you must walk carefully. No matter how the woman raged, she had to stay where she was or cross on the arched neck. At last she started, picking her steps and scolding as she went. The water was deep and full of terrible creatures. When the woman reached the middle of the river, the old man, angry because she scolded, jerked his neck. She fell into the water and that minute was seized and devoured, all except her stomach that floated down the river and past the house of the three youngs. The woman's life was in her stomach. The aunts were watching, for their nephew had been at the house and they had promised to help him. They caught the stomach, chopped it up, and killed it. The husband hurried on till he came to a forest where he found a young woman gathering sticks. "Where are you going?" asked the woman. "I am going on until I find pleasant people to live with." "Stay here and be my husband," said the woman. "We can live happily if you can manage my grandmother, who is a little old woman and is very troublesome." The woman was good looking, pleasant, and young. The man was glad to go home with her. When they came to the cabin, the little old woman was sitting outside. She was not half as tall as an ordinary person and was very thick. As soon as she saw them, she called out, "Oh, you have brought a husband. Give him something to eat." "Ask him in, grandmother," said the young woman. The old woman said, "Come in." They followed her into the cabin and sat down. Then she picked up a club and began to beat her granddaughter, saying, "You want a husband, do you?" She struck, and the woman endured the blows without saying a word. The next morning, the old woman said to her grandson, "We must go to the island and hunt." They went. The island was low and in the center of a deep lake. They landed and drew up a canoe. Then the old woman said, pointing in the direction away from the landing, "Take your place over there. I will drive the game toward you." When the man had gone some distance, he turned and saw that the old woman was in the canoe and paddling off as fast as she could go. He called to her, but she didn't answer. He stayed all day on the island. There was no way of escape. After a while, he noticed watermarks very high up on the trees, and then he knew that at times the island was almost underwater. When the night came, the water began to rise. The man climbed the tallest tree he could find. The water kept rising and he kept climbing. About halfway between midnight and morning, when all the smaller trees were covered, the man was at the very top of the high tree, and around was a crowd of creatures waiting to devour him. All at once, the man saw the morning star shining brightly. Then he remembered that in his youth, the morning star had promised him in a dream to help him in time of trouble or peril. And he thought, if the morning star will hurry the day and make light come quickly, the water will go down and I will be saved. And he called out, "O morning star, hurry on the day. O morning star, hurry on the day. When I was young, you promised to help me if I were ever in great peril." The morning star lived in a beautiful house and had a small boy as a servant. Hearing the voice, he called to the boy, "Who is that shouting on the island?" "Oh," said the boy, "that is the husband of the little old woman's granddaughter. He says that when he was young, you promised in a dream to help him." "Yes, I did promise, said Morning Star. Let day come right away. Day came immediately, and the water on the island went down at once. When the ground was dry, the man slipped down from the tree and, going to the landing place, buried himself in the sand, leaving only his nostrils and his eyes exposed. Early in the forenoon, the little old woman came in a canoe and, pulling it up on the beach, said to herself, "The flesh of my granddaughter's husband is eaten up, but maybe his bones are left. They are young and full of nice marrow. I'll find them and eat the marrow." And she began to search for the bones. When she was far enough away, the man crawled out of the sand, sprang into the canoe, pushed out, and paddled away. When he was some distance from the island, the old woman turned and, seeing him, cried out, "Come back, my grandson, come back. I'll never play another trick on you. I will love you." "Oh, no," cried the man. "You will not play another trick on me." And he hurried on. When night came and the water began to rise, the old woman climbed the tall pine tree. Halfway between midnight and morning, when the water was near the top of the tree and the creatures in the water were waiting to eat her, she screamed out to the Morning Star, "When I was young, you promised to help me if I ever were in distress. Help me now." The Morning Star heard the voice and called to the boy, "Is that man on the island yet?" "Oh, no," answered the boy. "He got off yesterday." "That is the little old woman herself. She says that when she was young, you promised in a dream that if ever she were in trouble, you would help her." "Oh, no," said the Morning Star. "I never had any conversation with that old woman. I never made her any promise." The Morning Star went to sleep and let day come at its own time. The water rose till it reached the top of the pine tree. Then the creatures of the lake seized the old woman and ate her up. The man went home to his wife, and they lived happily ever after. Are you on mute?
Yes, I am. Sorry.
So that was an
That
interesting story.
it was. They like that bone marrow.
Yeah. And it, the critters loved that bone marrow, and so did the caveman, for example, that they would cook things and break the bones and eat the marrow. But one of the things that I noticed in the story, and I can't remember the tribe, I think it's a southern tribe, but she had put pebbles in her bones and they rattled. Well, there are the jingle dancers in Native American, and they covered their dresses. It's only for women. Men don't do the jingle dance. And they cover them with bells and different things. But also there's a clan that they used to take turtle shells, empty turtle shells, and fill them full of pebbles. And they do a swamp dance where it's how they rattle their legs. They tie these things to their legs. And the current folks, since there are fewer turtles, they fill empty cans and tie them to their legs and do this swamp dance. And the noise that it makes and how it goes, and when the dancers get in sync with it, it's interesting. It's very, to me, it was very enthralling. And so the fact that she filled her bones and stopped to dance to hear them, that dance with the pebbles and bones has been around for a long time. A long time, and it came up even in this story. I just find that interesting, that it would be in a story like this.
Oh yeah, these stories are really interesting. I mean, last week I thought all about the rock story, and then I started looking up stuff about rocks. There's lots of different rocks, like Council Rock, and why are these rocks important? Why did all these people convey around rocks, especially the Native Americans all over the world? People are conveying around certain rocks, and I thought about it. I thought, maybe this was the where people got taught stuff is from some of these rocks, and then they just keep coming back, even though the rocks aren't teaching anymore. The people come back because that was a sacred spot. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but what if the rocks are still teaching, but the people that go there can't hear it?
Oh, that could be too.
I mean, I would go along with that as part of it. But I'm reminded, like big time, the Ayers Rock in Australia, that huge rock in the middle of the desert, and how sacred that rock is.
Yes.
And to the Aboriginals, that they are the first people, that they are the oldest, and that rock is like the oldest. And there's a lot of like, well, maybe, there might be some truth to that, just saying. But there's a tribe in northern South America, and I can't remember if it's in Venezuela or Ecuador, but it's up there. And these folks live on up this mountain range. And until a few years ago, no white man had ever been there. And that these people considered themselves that they were holding the earth together. That spot I want to say Venezuela, I'm not sure if that's true, but that their tribe was, and their descendants were charged with keeping that area pristine because it was the heart of the earth. And that white men weren't allowed, and and they were very specific about it, but we don't let anybody in because it is so sacred that we're the only ones allowed to be here, but we're here for a specific reason. So, but anyway, there are a lot of places on this planet that have been very sacred, and they have been built around some kind of a rock. I mean, even a gemstone is a rock.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look at Damascus there, where the Muslims or whatever, they dance around that big building, and that building is set up to hold what? A rock.
Oh yeah, that big stone, the big black stone.
The big black stone. Yeah, exactly. And you got to think, what is, I mean, this is what they're worshiping, is a stone. I mean, so it hits every culture. It's every culture. So where are we going from here? Are we doing another one, or are we doing a thing, or what's up?
No, but since we're kind of running long in the tooth, I figured we'd go
with a card.
We'd go with the card, and we got Dragonfly tonight.
Ooh, Dragonfly. Okay, I'm pulling that up.
Yep. And I think we've had Dragonfly not too long ago.
Yes, we did. That one comes up quite a bit.
Which is interesting in that, I don't choose these cards. They kind of choose me.
Yeah.
And so it's like, all right. But in a way, Dragonfly is illusion. And the number is number 27, which for those of you who follow Dante, if you reverse that, it's a 72. So maybe there's some kind of hidden message in that. But Dragonfly is illusion. And I think it's fitting in that, what I was kind of talking about earlier with the migration is that the people who write some of these stories are creating an illusion, it's got to be like this because, we white people have spread across the whole world, and it's an illusion, as to what maybe the real truth might be. It's partially true, I would agree, but there's a whole lot more to the story. So they have to paint this illusion for the rest of us. Absolutely. Dragonfly, breaks illusions, brings visions of power. No need to prove it, for now is the hour. Know it, believe it. Great Spirit intercedes, feeding you and blessing you and filling all your needs. Dragonfly medicine is of the dream time and the illusionary facade we accept as physical reality. The iridescence of dragonflies' wings remind us of colors not found in our everyday experience. Dragonflies' shifting of color, energy, form, and movement explodes into the mind of the observer, bringing vague memories of a time or a place where magic reigned. Now, I'm not necessarily sure if that's true for everybody to see a dragonfly and think those thoughts, but for the mystic and for the, I guess, the shaman folk, they would see that. Some legends say the dragonfly was once a dragon and that the dragon had scales like dragonfly's wings. Dragon was full of wisdom and flew through the night, bringing light with its fiery breath. The breath of dragon brought forth the art of magic and the illusion of changing form. And then dragon got caught in its own facade. Coyote tricked dragon into changing form. The shape of its new body became like dragonflies. In accepting the challenge to prove its power and magical prowess, dragon lost its power. Dragonfly is the essence of the winds of change, the messages of wisdom and enlightenment, and the communication from the elemental world. So what's the elemental world? It's all the little tiny creatures, and some would say the little people, and the fairies and the wood nymphs and the water sprites and so forth. And there are various types of dragonflies, and that in and of itself is magical. If dragonfly has flown into your cards today, you may have forgotten to water your plants, or on another level, you may need to give thanks to the foods that you eat for sustaining your body. And there's a lot to be said about that. Folks just gobble down food without saying thanks for the tomato that's on there, for the people who make the sandwich, for the cow that gave its life. Just, give thanks. On the psychological level, it may be time to break down the illusions that you have held that restricts your actions or your ideas. So you fill your head with illusions of grandeur, as it were, and it keeps you out of the real world. Dragonfly medicine always beckons you to seek out the parts of your habits which you need to change. Have you put on too much weight, or have you started to look like a scarecrow? Have you tended to the changes you have wanted? In other words, like for me, I'm trying to learn how to walk again because of my back surgery. And it's real easy to just sit still because it hurts. When, you have to get up and walk, so you have to, in my mind, it's okay, well, I'll get better and I'll sit here until it doesn't. No. You have to tend to those things. So you have to get up and walk a little bit, even though it's uncomfortable. So everybody must do some things in life that's uncomfortable, but you got to do it. You got to take out the trash. You got to do certain things. You like them or not, you just got to do them. So dragonfly, the illusion that, somebody else is going to take out the trash, when maybe it's just easier for you to do it. See how you can apply the art of illusion to your present question or situation. And remember that things are never completely as they seem. Now, this card was upside down today. So the contrary, are you trying to prove to yourself, or maybe somebody else, that you have power? Now, that's an interesting statement. Are you caught in an illusion that weakens your true feelings or maybe minimizes your own abilities? If so, you may have contracted dragon-like dive bombing? Is this the final crash and burn for some pipe dream that had no real purpose? Look within yourself and feel the sense of self energy within yourself. Notice if it is ebbing, and find the point in time when you were deluded into believing that you would be happier if you changed because somebody else wanted you to. There are a lot of times in my life where the wife or other people, well, Dave, if you did this, Dave, if you did that, or, Dave, if you gave up this or that or whatever, they want to make you into what they think you should be. And that is misery, is a prime clue that you have lost your will and personal validity. When you bought into somebody else's idea of who you are or what you should be, somebody else's idea. And I mean, even the government and the world, this idea now that we should all be all non-binary, or you're a they or a them, or you're a pronoun or something like that. And so they're trying to control. Now, isn't that an illusion? Isn't that a bunch of smoke and mirrors for a lot of people? The illusion was that you would be happier if you did it their way, right? Well, you have to follow these rules. And so we as dragonflies, if we do this, we're all going to be happier. Maybe dragonfly card was right on the money tonight. In forfeiting what you know is right and true for you personally, you give away your power. And that's what's going on. People are giving into these things because they don't want to seem to be, but that's giving up our own power, not just you or me, but other people. And you can see it going on all around us. And it says it is time for you to take your power back. Follow Dragonfly to a place inside where magic is still alive, and drink deeply of its power. The strength belongs to you. It is the power of becoming the illusion. This ability is ever changing and contains within it the knowledge that you are creating it all. So in your world, if you're allowing other people to control what you think, then you've lost your power. So as soon as you take it back by saying, no, I don't agree with that, and no, I'm not going along with it, you have taken your power back. And we all need to do that. So illusion, yeah. Wow, butterfly message, dragonfly message, that was interesting. I thought maybe it wouldn't have been appropriate, but because it was upside down, boy, that really,
yeah.
Take your power back, people,
That is for sure. We preach that a lot around here. Everything is illusion. Find out your own truth inside you. I just did a show on Saturday about learning, and are we going to school and learning things? Do we turn on the news and learn stuff, and it's just something they're feeding us, and we're just regurgitating that later on as the truth, and that's what we learn. Well, all we didn't really we were taught what to think, but we never really learned it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and we didn't learn from the experience either. It's like this stuff now. It's like, people are so fed up with this, some of this stuff, and the non-binary stuff and all of that. And it's like, let them go. Because somebody said, this is nothing more than a fad. And so, but the more that we get upset about it, we have lost our power. And all we have to do is say within ourselves, no, I don't agree with that. No, I'm going to support folks and I'm going to stand up against it. No, I don't think it's right. So, you don't have to necessarily go out in the street and protest it, but by simply making up your own mind and going, nope, I'm not agreeing with this. So in the collective energy of thought, the more people who just quietly and calmly say, nope, this ain't right. Nope, I'm not going to go for it. I'm going to support those who stand up for women's rights. And no, we just ain't going to allow this to happen. Right. And that energy goes out into the universe. So the universe that's trying to create the illusion, thank you, Dragonfly, the illusion that this is proper and good, and little boys and girls should learn how to do some of these things and dress and drag, and you know, that, wait a minute, maybe it's just not right. Allow them to grow up and make a choice, you know, right. But is it just right for everybody, and that we should just continue to accept this small portion of the population is going to influence all of us the way it has? And it has.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, make up in your own mind. Nope, sorry, ain't going, I'm not going to go along with it. Nope, ain't going along with it. Oh, they can do all they want to, but I'm not on board with this, you know. And simply because of that, making up your mind, the universe is listening.
Exactly. Exactly. Learn instead of just being taught versus, you know. So anyway, yeah, learning is a process.
Learn that you have, you know, by taking this simple thing back, this power, learn to take your power back. That's a lesson in life, you know, that you have the power to say no.
Yes. A lot of people can't.
Or the power to say yes. I mean, it depends on which side of whatever, but you know, yes, I'm going to support women. And no, I don't think it's right for a transgender to win a swimming competition, you know, or that bicycle race that was won by that quote, you know, gentleman, or the, you know, or the weightlifting class that was won by a gentleman, you know. No, that's wrong. And I'm going to stand up for the women. That is right. That is taking power back. That is saying to women, even as a man, y'all take your power back. And women need to do that because they're under the illusion that they can't.
Yes. Yes, I totally agree with that. I totally agree with that. I'm on board. Anyway, okay, let's wrap this up. And
at the 2-hour mark, almost.
At the 2-hour mark. Anyway, yeah.
We love you all, and take your power back.
Looks like
don't let people convince you that you don't have the power to say no or whatever. Take your power back and mean it.
Yes, it looks like Aaron's energy did just that. Yep. So anyway, good for you. She's taken her power back and starting a new life, and I'm sure she will create a new and better one. And with that, I hope everybody learned something. You got a show after this?
Yes.
Good deal. Okay, everybody, go right on over there. David's going to be getting a cup of coffee. And got to
go outside and let the dog out, and me, and you know, got to take a pee break, and give me a few minutes and then come on over.
That's right. Okay, with that, I got to get to bed. I got to go to work. I'm on call. So remember, join me Saturday night. We'll be having some great guests on, I'm sure, and all during the week. And with that, remember, go out and do something nice for somebody. Enjoy your life. Remember, life can be an illusion if you want it to be, but more than likely, you got to find your truth right inside of you. Stand up, say no, say yes, whichever it takes, but just be the frequency you want to receive, everybody. Love you all. Peace, everybody.
Cheers.
And there we go. Another